looking at the summer, this is the bit that obviously all the fans are going to be excited about when a team that hasn't been in the Premier League for a long time, obviously it's been 22 years for Ipswich, comes up. It's about the money. It's about what the club can spend over the summer. In Ipswich's terms, what were you kind of expecting in the coming weeks in terms of maybe the sphere in the Premier League and in Europe? How competitive do you think that they'll be? Because different newly promoted teams seem to have quite different approaches.
Well, that will come down from on high. So, the owners are still relatively new at the job. I think in Mark Ashton, the club has got a safe pair of hands. And that is not a criticism. That, I can assure you, that's the exact opposite of criticism. We've seen some clubs be promoted, get giddy, spend a lot of money, not spend that money wisely, and either be relegated or rack up huge losses, and have lots of players for whom things haven't worked out in that first season. And you then have the problem of people either sitting on the bench or not being picked in the squad. They're on 60, 70 grand a week because the club has paid top dollar for what you might call the other 14 clubs. We know that we've got the big six, which is sort of turning into, with Newcastle around, sort of the big seven, potentially Villa the big eight. But for the other clubs, there is sort of a rough level of wages. And normally you will see clubs who have just been promoted or have been promoted for the first time in many years. They tend to be at the lower end of the wage scale. So if we take a look at Brentford, for example, when they were promoted, was it 3 seasons ago, they were only paying 30 grand a week for their first season in the Premier League. In the second season, it went up to 45. They just had the third season. I think their results come out, they'll be over 50. But they were very much a very lean club in terms of what they were spending. So I would imagine that Ipswich Town might try to replicate that model. They've got continuity at the top of the club in terms of the chief executive, and now, of course, Kieran Maguire. And they'll try to buy smart rather than buy big. So from a fan's point of view, the club will be linked to the player who you probably have never heard of. If they're coming from overseas, you'll then go and look at their YouTube reel and form an opinion. Don't get too greedy is what has always been my view. If you take a look at those clubs that have been promoted to the Premier League and stayed there, so in the past few years we've had Palace, we've had Brighton, Forest they've been there for 2 seasons now. Brentford, those clubs have bought modestly. They bought some of the best players from the Championship at times, who they believe can make a step up. They've probably targeted some of the less focused or the less high profile markets within Europe and in South America and so on. And they've used that to elevate the club into a more perennial or more consistent member of the Premier League. It's going to be tough. The chances of doing a Sheffield United, who were promoted and finished 9th, and Leeds United, who were promoted and finished 9th, that is the exception rather than the norm. And 17th next season, anything above that, or anything there or above that, in my view, would be a fantastic achievement. And there will be times when you go 6 or 7 matches without a win and things get a bit twitchy. You've got to keep the faith in the manager and the players and the people in charge.